A Week of Years by John C. Campbell. Narrated by John C. Campbell. Introduction. Monday was just a guess. Tuesday failed the test. Wednesday required my best. Thursday I looked for less. Friday bore my distress. Saturday made me confess. Sunday provided redress. Monday's teenage ways. While I was still a child, wholly sure of what realities were, world-weary cynic extraordinaire that I was, I made my masterpieces in and between classes, from within a state of wisdom bordered closely upon a churlishly schoolish boredom, and thought, oh, what a talent waits upon the world to unleash it. Although I didn't really understand anything, I felt it all so strongly calling my heart and soul that in many matters I well expressed exactly what it was I didn't know. Human song. Loneliness, so deeply rooted in the soul, and the longing for anyone wells up from within, a sad, slow echo of myself that is my human song. What value there was in my expressions often had little to do with truth and wisdom, but I was having fun. It didn't matter in the least to me whether what I wrote had substance, only that it was pleasing personally. She was beautiful, the lady I saw, and as she walked towards me I could almost swear she floated on the air, so gracefully did she move. Her hair was long, cascading down her back, and black as a moonless midnight sky. Her lips were bright blood red, but her skin a mere reflection of the moonlight, so pale I could almost see through it. She held her hands out to me, and I reached out to touch her, but recoiled in horror, for her embrace was as cold as a winter's day. Was then she spoke to me, and her words sent an eerie chill to my soul, for she called herself the Lady Cardinelli, and I knew that name from a headstone I'd seen on a grave outside this very house. Like many introspective young men, I was enthralled with death. I thought much on that grim reaper, lived so close upon the heels of my wild, wild ways, and so far from any state of mind that I could now, even reasonably, consider sane. Eventide. Darkness, sweet darkness, come lie beside me, and together we'll watch the light fade in the eventide. Caress my eyes with your chill breath, glaze them and close them forever. Take my hand, eternal darkness, kiss me once, and then lead me to death. Still and still, although younger than memory permits me to bear, I do remember, in those snatches left to the perspective age takes, there were at least the beginnings of wisdom, shone in the fires of inspiration I did daily visit to bathe within the cool discernment of. Idolized. The mountains I cannot move would have all my time and every ounce of my ingenuity. The stars I cannot reach would have my heart anyway. The dreams I cannot see would have me living another reality. All my impossible goals would have a hold of my fate to twist their way. But I would be a man by my own hand. I hug the earth, grasping my plow firmly, straightening my back, and forging forth upon a conquest of every day. It is enough for me. All in all, I have to say, my youth was the best that it could be. If nothing else, it was the beginning of a journey toward truth, whose first most valuable lesson was simply to temper the serious business of being alive with a little bit of fun, most judiciously interjected into every day. It was in the middle of all my macho schemes, on a late Monday's Eve, just as I was turning 20, that I found a bright dream paled all other realities into insignificant memories. I thought the spell of love would never end, but too foolishly soon a cloudy, desolate morn would come upon my world, leaving me with only the end of a love story to tell. Tuesday's Lost Love. We shared each other's souls for a single precious night, a few hours of warm electric bliss before, in Tuesday's dawn, I awoke bleak and cold and all alone. Even as our time together ended, I knew deep inside I didn't really want to go. But I was too slow to tell her so. There was pain in our parting, the heartache of a love undone from two who had for so short an eternity been one. All the hate and all the mistrust such mistakes must always generate quickly dissipated after she was gone, snuffed by the cold and bitter storms loneliness does make within the midst of such ache. And I wrote, "Just a little rain." When I lost the woman I loved, I said, "It's just a little rain that's going to fall." But days go by like years, and I've come to find that such a little rain has become the flood. For a long time, I had a hard time remembering how to put one foot in front of the other, how to keep going. I began to feel really sorry for myself, and I blamed her in some mighty tough ways for some things that weren't all her fault. But I wasn't thinking very clearly at the time. I was mad and lost in my blind, dumb pain. You and I. Once there was only you and I. But do you not remember? We were a universe, everything unto God for each other. The world surrounds you now. You look upon this confining speck of dust, and at this fading physical reality, and you say, "Oh, look, I have the whole world now, when once I knew only you." And you do not remember that once you held eternity. It took a while, but eventually I was able to smile again. It was in sweet agony, unburied memories still smoldering behind my eyes, that I wrote this poem to my lost love. For the memories. Once, for a short sweet time, you and I knew only our love. And while sometimes we played those games that people play, mostly we tried so very hard to give all we had with love. Now you're gone, and I sit here with my pen crying words of loneliness. So much we still could share, so many words left unsaid. Yet the world has turned around and left us alone again. I will live my life growing old without you, able to give you nothing more than the sad, hopeless promise of a love that lives unfulfilled, and yet I can't help but feel. I give this poem to you only, that you know I love you still. In the end, it was time took me far enough away to see clearly enough to know I had lost my hold on love, indulging my ego in vague and foolish notions of responsibility. It was then I took pen in hand to inscribe this epitaph. In the end, we lived a love became a lie, because it would not adopt to the changes rearranged our lives. We grew away from each other on our own, until one day I opened my eyes and, looking around, realized I was alone. I went on with life. I've never known another love like my first one. I don't think we ever do. But I did find another reason for living that helped carry me through. Tomorrow, I'd like to share with you Wednesday's Child of Truth. Determined never again to be victimized by the kind of mind-numbing pain that characterized the end of my first love, but unwilling to give up on the concept itself, in the only other move open to me, indeed in purest desperation, I became a student of life. It was my hope that one day, if I was good enough, I would graduate. Maybe then I would finally understand the truth about love. Shouldering painful memories aside, I faced forward and was off to school, where I began the study of truth's timeless rules. Present tense. The time of life is now, for the past is but a memory. If called to mind, it will be uselessly relearned. And the future, only unknown, is able to give nothing in return, for the moments wasting away as you wonder just how things might turn out to be. Both those unrealities, all the while, leave you lost to now. And so, paradoxically, as tomorrow becomes today and slips away into never was, you are left without time worth recalling at all. As my classes grew in scope to include the thoughts and dreams of my fellow human beings, another truth came clearly into view. Pauper's tune. The world goes along singing its merry tune, never leaving those disbelieving few a chance to rise above their old sad songs. But it's those who want, who need. So if someone comes your way who's trying hard to stop singing the blues and failing to, then bare your heart to their ears and let them hear the true tunes of joy serenade each moment of every day, that of the beauty of the melody they might receive the gift of life from you. Throughout that gloriously inspired day, I explored many strange and wondrous awarenesses, and though each did lead me to places where my every belief was suspect, out of those explorations grew certain convictions, such as, anything you can't take beyond the grave is as the dust of the grave. God doesn't care how big the hole is that you fall in, only that you climb back out again. Still, I've always considered it kind of ironic that the most important truth I learned in my journey through that bright and high curriculum was the one I most hoped but least expected to find. The heart of love. Into the void that was my heart, there poured a never-ending fullness, a salvation I had never hoped could be. I found comfort and peace in a word, for God touched my spirit to show me the way, and He called the way by name, and the name of the way was love. Some call love treacherous, given only for pleasure's sake, come and gone upon the wings of desire, leaving only a prison foolish dreams did make. Some call love selfishness, giving only that it might take, a darkness that can see only the me in any end. Some call love all-consuming, ecstasy and despair intermingling unchecked, a fire that burns any who from its folds would flee. But I say it is only the shadow of love has passed these poor souls by, for true love is a reality, points the way to the heart of eternity. By the end of Wednesday's courses, my every attitude depended upon inspirations reaped from a wisdom nourished by my passionate consummation of the higher study of love. This feeling of such constance as I found in my own life left me believing in all humanity like never before. I threw caution to the winds and gave myself over to this kind reasoning. The secret. God's greatest gift to man is life, for within life all other possibilities are contained. God gave this greatest of all gifts to man as an expression of love. Therefore, the reason for man's existence is love. What better reason could there be to live for then than to love, that you might give God back in gratitude the most He gave you the ability to give? Nowadays, I remember that 22nd year of my life as a great adventure, as a time of healings, wherein personally and intimately I experienced God as a vitally dynamic force in my life. Indeed, every reason for my existence went back to the cosmic hymn. I became determined to share my insights into those unalterable cosmic laws which govern so many of the causes to whose effects we are subject with the rest of the human race. I was going to bring truth to the world. It was a noble idea, and it only had one flaw. In retrospect, what that was is painfully obvious. You see, it meant I had to somehow connect my idealistic opinions to a world of a much different persuasion. It didn't take me long to become Thursday's cynic. As it has been with so many other students from time immemorial, it was damnably difficult for me to understand that the only thing left to do once I graduated from school was to take my precious textbooks and toss them in the can. At first, I thought the fault was all mine. Maybe I just hadn't figured out how to be selfless enough to see the best in all the rest of us. Point of view. The mind perceives most readily from a vantage point arrived at within. But how to see the greater reality? In thoughts beyond my narrow views, I catch but glimpses of wisdom and truth. How indeed, I ask myself. I think if only I could lose me, I might forget to be so prejudiced as well. I was spoiling for a fall, even as I stood upon the precipice and shouted my truths at a world I was sure would listen, if only it could hear my love's clarion call. Overview. Whatever poor disguise this body may wear, however trapped we are in our own minds, still compassion can find our humanity always near. Do not fear the blights, the scars and the iniquities of life. Each is as a passing dream, lost upon the winds of time as though they had never been. We are the light in our eyes, the expression of will that has progressed into this civilization from the first firelit gatherings of animal man. Therefore, no one lives in vain if they can further life within their offspring, or can add to the fund of knowledge will someday make complete God's plan for man. It didn't take me long to learn that, if I wasn't careful about what I gave, the world would consume my once bright all and then toss away what's left of me most carelessly. The Matador. The world has no heart. Only you can care. But what do you do when someone won't accept the facts? Like a mad, blind bull, you see them racing toward the sword, unwilling to listen to any reason they can't condone. All you can do is get out of their way and hope the matador has a heart of his own. I thought I was talking loud and clear, thought I was crying over things that were dear, but in reality I was whispering in my own ear. Heart of grief. The heart of grief, ye merry world of thieves, begins in desperation, cries out in loneliness, finally opens undeceived. We turn a blind eye to our humanity, insufferably to self-appease. They who hurt are. We prove the pain. If Thursday day was hard on my heart, the falling night was harder on my soul. It was in the hour approaches midnight, when things are naturally darkest anyway, that I finally decided the world didn't deserve much greater favor than to leave it to swallow the bitter dregs of the harvest it had thoughtlessly tromped upon, with feet that had, all along, been following the mule. Friday's time out from life. In a fit of despondency, I slept through Friday, and awoke only to the knock of the party upon my door. I led that pack into my back room and sat in quiet splendor, doling out highfalutin philosophies with one hand, while with the other I kept them asking for more. Money schemes and credit dreams. The burdens of money, all its hungers and its lusts, are nourished by the darkness in each of us. Procurer of misery, prophet of ruin, credit feeds upon our souls, then pronounces our doom. What fools we are, when what we love is what we're paid, to exchange dust for dust, and think we have it made. I didn't think such small indulgences could so easily steal my soul, when I so blithely set my own scenario. In fact, during those all-night discussions, I at first felt I had found the fount of all true wisdom. In each cup, the zealous man is well known for a single point of view. The learned man, quoth he, half a dozen or more to fit every single need. The wise man, instead, finds that questions only multiply inside his head. In time, I found myself hungering more and more for those places where my name was a kind of fame I could call real at will. Hangin'. The clatter and chatter of noless noises, a quiet clamor of murmuring voices, wafts upon the breezeless poise slipping my way along the cool, lacy, shadowed mahogany woods. And that so pleasant decanter, filled with foreign spices, tips, spilling out timeless surprises, whelming my senses with the rich aromas of 1,000 good times. And I am sat most quietly fine, so slowly expanding my mind, drawn up high upon the universe's wings to dream sweet dreams of kinder things, which, though this old hard world daily displaces, I work nightly right to find. I auctioned off heart and mind to keep my party going, but it seemed no more than the proverbial 15 minutes had passed before I could no longer find even the last traces of my name on the weak and rotting frames of the places where I once had played my games. I staggered out into the empty night and promptly lost my way home. King of Pain. The King of Pain has no displeasing name, whereby one might discern threat of his approach, but loss will mark thee to know when he departs, his song gone through and through thee, and bared thee to thy bones. By Friday's end, the truth had become a nightmare, haunting my every waking dream. Upon this short span, the human spirit writhes in the cesspool, and then cries out for mercy. But the weight of this hard world is too much to bear, so you learn to live in despair. And the cold sinks deep, and the mind forgets its humanity, becomes a perfect example of failure, treading on its own hopes every time it attempts to cope with its degradation. But understand, it will always become worse than you can imagine. There's only one way to save yourself. You must first accept the truth of defeat. Then you must learn to be responsible for your own mortality, for upon this short span does your flesh and blood exist, and there is no other chance, and no redemption, once age snatches away every possibility and hurls you into eternity. A small, still shadow surrounded by darkness. It was the very dregs of the self-respect I had been brought up with, demanded that I move on before I came to no good end. Wrung out, strung out, and hung over, I managed to stay straight long enough to focus my bleary eyes, and so find the dawn of a better way. Saturday's reconciliations. There is no pain like that which is self-inflicted. No longer any soaring, graceful inspiration upon which I might make my way throughout my days. Like an old alcoholic, I stumbled over every thought, my inspiration dearly bought, reflecting the void inside. One way or another. A will divided by realities dreams no more. For precious truth will not suffer at the hands of such brutality as delivers mercenary fates, nor will it know compromise, though heart be laid bare and upheld by the most glorious of propositions. Undecided, mind will ride its visions upon the wicked ways of this world, wending here and there, but never getting anywhere. It was the pain reminded me of my humanity, so I bled upon the pages, and oddly enough, even as I worked to best express the worst of what I felt, I began to heal. The dilemma. Haunting images stir his insanity. Past captures present. While horror looks on without clue, he loses where as he loses who. He follows himself to the tree, hangs himself because he bleeds. Woe to those who believe all they are is all they can be. All day Saturday, I wrote myself little notes, reminding my recovering wits what realities are all about. Stone does not find answers, it invents them. Angels take heart from the sight of God, but man's strength comes from faith. Only those who refuse to stand on their own 2 feet ever fall short of their destiny. The Lord does test life by rules He, not we, deem best. Neither right nor wrong, it is the pain of choice, creates distinction within this human race. I kept working on the basics, painstakingly putting the important lessons I'd first learned as a youth back into the point of my views. Slowly but surely, I began to find my physically oriented perspectives being replaced with the sweet, cleanly remembered constants of spiritual proofs. While thus laboring to regain some kind of self-sustaining attitude, I wrote this poem to remind myself of the relative importance of both. The Hand of Power. A man's open hand reaches out to draw power from the universe. A man's clenched fist draws its power from the earth. But what use the earth if you, in turn, are ignored by the universe? All day that long and weary Saturday, I journeyed through the questions contained in a frame of mind existed beyond that nameless tombstone I had so carelessly set in my path way too many years before. I knew I was finally beginning to get somewhere when the world around me began to feel less real than the eternity in front of me. For now and for forever. For I, to will fortune's sleepy death, to have felt all time slow, the world to pass beyond the breath of thought's endeavors, falling in disrespect into the past of forevers, must have seen some tangible fate bears me up to further ambition than heart's tempters can sate. Beguiled no longer by those stuttered needs, hold men too often mute, I smile and turn away from greed. To trod the path uphill, lo, takes me not where I, but where He wills. By the time Saturday was done and gone, I had found the undistracted reflections of a truth that could live and breathe within the pain of my realities. I no longer had to worry so much about what was going on within, so I began to look around instead. What I saw beckoned me toward the path of Sunday's Son of Man. As Sunday morning dawned within my conscience, with all the dearness of a healthy mind and a clear conscience, I found myself no longer a part of the furious pace of this material race. I wanted nothing more to do with a life contained lots of human beings, but no humanity. So I went looking for a more natural frame to reference. I took my notebook, strapped a pack upon my back, and went out into the world to see of it what I could be. Before I left, I wrote a poem, commemorated all the big city ways collectively control our greedy psyches. This good ship Earth. A shimmering delicate construct. The quality of this dream is the space creates our realities. Voiceless but remorseless, our brash imaginings shake the finely wrought web of this grand illusion. If we could, we would pull the stars from the sky. Like children in a china shop, we mutilate this masterpiece, busy at play among the glittering arrays of our own small visions. But one day, the oceans will decline, the atmosphere retreat, and man meet the silence, face to face, God and the human race. And what of the great truths had once demanded I share them with the world to prove I care? Well, all I've got to say, time sure is tough on childhood conceits. To live, to live. Life is a progression of facts, too dynamic to fit any one person's scheme of things. Satisfaction should be found in the grace of motion, not in the static notions of well-grounded minds. It was those lessons learned in the College of Hard Knocks, after my graduation from Wednesday's elementary spiritual training, dispelled my idealistic theories, and finally led me into directions I could really count on. A good man. A good man knows himself, helps when he can, lets others make their own stand. His word is his will, and all he asks is to understand. At 35, I've seen a lot of sights and survived a lot of fights. Sometimes my road has been a hard one, but as Sunday slides on into Monday, wherein another week of years awaits the perennial challenge of my ever-changing frames, I'd like to sum up this sense of being that has evolved over the years of my life by sharing my feelings toward that most glorious procession. And if in the last moment, even as my steps enter that long, narrow tunnel, will blind me forever to the blessed warmth of our everyday, ordinary sun, even then, as my earthly vision dims to black and I realize I am never more to taste of life's sweet and tender bosom, soon beyond, and so long into cold knowing that such small pleasures must surely be snuffed, as desire would breed, naming as my needs its small and secret greeds, or conscience raised to conscious state, the satisfactions of will's proudest successes. I, even then, even as I understand I will never again laugh, never cry, even then, even as I lay dying, I will walk that thin line measures its length unto the end of time, a crown of wasted splendor, rakishly perched upon my poor bare head, treading steadily forward upon ethereal feet, and look there, look forward to the beginning of another adventure. The end, for now. This has been an Audible production. A Week of Years by John C. Campbell. Copyright 2018 by John C. Campbell.